Okay, so this is the micro free response question number 1 from 2013. And since it refers to this graph, I'm just going to leave the graph up here and use it as I answer the questions here, at least at the beginning. So we're told that this is a profit maximizing monopolist. And so they want to know what is the monopolist's quantity of output. So the profit maximizing or loss minimizing rule is that the firm produces where the marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. So you can see that on this graph, marginal revenue, marginal cost are equal to each other at quantity Q1. So that answers that part. Then the monopolist, the price they charge comes off of the demand curve at Q1. So if we follow up, the demand curve is here, and that would mean P3 is the price that the monopolist will charge for quantity Q1, its profit maximizing output. Next, they ask us what is the profit earned by the monopolist. So total revenue is the quantity we sell times the price we sell it. So that would be this area of this rectangle that I'm outlining in green. But of course, we have to deduct any costs. So we have the costs would be at Q1 we go up to where average total cost is. So this area down here would represent total costs, and then that would leave us with the area of here in blue, P1, P3, A, C. So use the letters to designate P1 to P3, A, C. To show the next part, the deadweight loss, we have to compare what quantity society would produce against what the monopolist has chosen to produce here at Q1. So society would choose to produce where price is equal to marginal cost, and remember the demand curve has price in it. So where does demand and marginal cost equal each other? Point F, and that's quantity Q3. Since the monopolist produces at Q1, then the area of deadweight loss would be this area AFC. We could shade it in a little bit if we wanted to there. So AFC, ACF, CAF, however order you want to put those letters in, that would represent our area of deadweight loss, the difference between the quantity Q3 that society wants and the quantity that the monopolist produces Q1. For part B, we're assuming that now the monopolist can perfectly price discriminate. Remember, price discrimination means that we charge each consumer exactly what they're willing to pay. Let me clean this up just a moment here. So in essence, that would involve reuniting the marginal revenue with the demand curve out here. If we could perfectly price discriminate, marginal revenue would now be part of Mr. DARP. Demand, average revenue, marginal revenue, price would all be in the same line. And so the quantity produced would now be where the marginal revenue equals marginal cost and quantity 3. So perfect price discrimination would actually allow the monopolist to produce the quantity that society wants. The last part of this was to show the total revenue received by the monopolist. That total revenue, remember, is always price times quantity, and the quantity now that they're producing is Q3, and the price that they receive is distinct for each one of the various consumers that make up the demand curve for any of the quantities up to Q3. So I've just outlined in green here what would represent the total revenue received by the monopolist. The price would be P4 for at one end, but then each individual consumer is paying one of those prices along the demand curve all the way up to Q3. So this whole area, and that would be 0 to P4, F, and Q3 as the corners of this total revenue for the perfectly price discriminating monopolist. Before answering parts C, D, and E, I wanted to show you that the reason they weren't included at first were because they wrapped onto a second page. So I wanted to show those to you here so that you could look at those and try to answer them using the graph before we actually run through the answers. So now that you've had a chance to peek at the questions for part C, D, and E, even though they're not on screen here, let's look at the answer for C. C asked to give the socially efficient quantity, and as we identified earlier in another part of this same question, Q3 is the socially efficient quantity. That's where price was equal to marginal cost. Remember, price is part of the demand curve here. So Q3 is the answer for the first part of C. The second part wants to know about what the area of consumer surplus would be at this efficient quantity. And remember, consumer surplus is the area below the demand curve but above the market price. So the market price in this case for Q3 is going to be F. This is a demand curve, and then I'm outlining in green the area below the demand curve down to the current market price if the monopolist were forced to charge a single price at the socially efficient quantity of Q3. So the letter designation for this would be, P1, P4, F is the way we designate the triangular area of consumer surplus for Part C. Part D asks us whether the monopolist is facing, or rather the monopolist facing the regulation to produce at a single price the socially efficient quantity, whether they're earning a positive profit, zero economic profit, or incurring a loss. And the question, or the answer would be that since price is equal to our costs, marginal and average total cost here at F, that the firm is just going to break even. Price is equal to average total cost. So that is the break even. So the monopolist is not profiting or losing. They are experiencing break even at this point. And then finally is point F in the elastic, inelastic, or unit elastic portion of the demand curve. Well, here's point F, and what you'll notice about point F is if you look down here, the marginal revenue curve is less than 0 at F. So whenever marginal revenue is less than 0, then we're in the inelastic range of the demand curve when marginal revenue is equal to 0. We're going to be unit elastic, and when marginal revenue is greater than 0, we're in the elastic range of our demand curve. So this would be the point of unit elasticity. So the upper range here is all elastic, unit elastic, and then inelastic. And that's it.